Grand Rising Flower Buds, welcome to my channel. If you are new, my name is Kitty. This is my channel. Take a look now or later. If this is not your first time being here, welcome back, you guys. Sending lots of love your way, hoping that today is very beautiful for you today. So today's video is going to be a story time topic. So sometimes Facebook notifications are really good. So today is the 2-year, I guess, anniversary of Freyja almost dying in her sleep, basically. And so I wanted to come here and tell the story of that, and how, had it not been for spirit intervention, she would not be here today. So I came to the conclusion that it was John. So John is Sean's older brother, who was murdered a few years ago now. And so he died November 1st of 2016. Yeah, so I think it was November 1st, 2016 that he died. And prior to the day that I'm going to be talking about, I want to tell you that there were 2 other instances where he had presented himself, like full-blown presented himself. Now, mind you, he is no longer in his physical body, okay? He's in spirit. And I don't say ghost because when I think of ghost, I'm thinking of a bound spirit, and he's not bound here. I don't believe that he's bound here. I believe that he comes and goes. That is why I say a or a spirit guide. I'll refer to him as either one of those. So yeah, Valkyrie was a baby at this time, like an actual infant baby. And there were a couple of instances. Okay, so let me tell you about the first one. We were living in, both instances were in the house. Okay, so the very first time, it was like when his death was pretty fresh. Okay, and like I said, Valkyrie was still a baby, and she happened to be in her room. This was when we were living in a house. We had 3-bedroom. This is when we were living in our 3-bedroom house, and everybody had their own room. Okay, so the girls had their room, Eli had his own room, and me and Sean had our room. And so Valkyrie's crib was in their room, right? So so like I said, this was when he was fresh. So this is when people were still coming over to the house, you know, just chilling for a little bit and, you know, doing whatever. And so this particular day, I had been in the room asleep. I was taking a nap, and I didn't know until later, but Sean had the kids out in the backyard, right? So I hear Valkyrie crying. So I get up, and I was asleep. I get up out of my sleep. I'm walking to the room, and, I look in the room, and I see Sean, who I think is Sean, dressed in clothes. I see blue jeans. I remember seeing some boots, some tan boots. And, literally, I'm thinking that I'm looking at Sean holding Valkyrie, just like this, his back was to me. So I'm walking in, and I see Sean, who I think is Sean, holding Valkyrie like this. So, okay, she's good. So I make so I turn around and go back into the direction of my room, and Sean is walking in from the back door. So I'm like, there's nobody there now, and Valkyrie isn't crying anymore. So I'm like, hey Sean, was you just in there with Valkyrie? did you just put Valkyrie back to sleep? You know, and he's like, no, I was outside. And I'm like, come here. I just saw you in that room shushing Valkyrie back to sleep. I just saw you. And he's like, huh, no, that's crazy. You know, did a walkthrough. Oh, no, that's crazy. Must have been John. And I'm like, it most certainly had to been, because I swore, I could swear, you know what I'm saying, that was Sean in that room. Okay, so that was the very, very first time, you know, that I had seen him in person since he had died. The day he had died, I had a dream about him, and we were in the whole scene was like blue moon. Okay, I don't know if you know what that is, but the moon was bright, but instead of it being a dark night, it sort of looked like a dark blue night. Like, not a dark blue night, but it was dark, but it was like the scene was lit up by a blue light. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the only visual that I can give y'all. So there was like this road. All right, there was this road, and there was this huge house. Okay, it was like a mansion or a castle. It was huge. And I had seen John on this big black horse, and the horse was beautiful, black, and John was on top of the horse, and I was just looking. He didn't say anything. He kind of like looked back, and I think I had wrote it down. Like, I don't even remember the details. It was like he had said, or either he said, he asked me, was I scared, or I asked him, was he scared? And, you know, he was like, no, and then just went on. And so, yeah, that was the dream I had that day or that week that he had died. And then I seen him in person that day. And then the next time, same thing, Valkyrie was in her room. This time me and Sean had I think we had argued that day, and I just was slept in the living room, and he was in the room, and so I hear Valkyrie crying again. And mind you, this is way early in the morning. Okay, you know how kids like to wake themselves up in the middle of the night. It was sort of like that. So she whining, and I can hear the sound of the crib, rocking, so I'm like, oh, Eli must have woke up. Let me go tell Eli to go back to bed. So I look in Eli's room. Eli's knocked out, and I'm like, and mind you, this is when I wasn't as strong in my spirituality and seeing spirits and having visions. I wasn't comfortable yet, because I haven't been comfortable seeing spirits or doing things like that since I was 16, when I had the dream of my uncle dying, and that. So I was just no, and that dream turned out to be an actual vision. So I was no, sort of turned it off. And so yeah, so all of this was just blowing my mind all over again, so so Eli's knocked out, and so I peek in the room, I don't see Sean, and I'm just I'm not so the reason how I didn't get I got scared, but I didn't get terrified, because I didn't feel anything weird, I was just sort of freaked out, in the sense of I'm really seeing this right now, this is actually happening right now, and so I looked in there, Valkyrie's okay, she's sleep again, doing her little baby smile in their sleep. And I grew up learning that when a baby smiles in their sleep, that means angels are playing with them, so she's good. So I grab the blanket and I run in the room, and I'm just I'll go to sleep in here in the room, and so yeah, so a few years later, we ended up moving out of that house, and we got this apartment. And so nothing happened. It was literally like a regular day. Freyja and the kids were outside playing, and you know, come in, chill out, you know, get ready for bed, whatever. And you know, like Freyja's like, you know, she's like sitting on the couch, and she's like, you okay? And she's like, you know, like, yeah. So, you know, like get some water, calm down a little bit more. So we ended up going to sleep, and next thing I know, like, it literally feels like I'm in the blanket nice and cozy, and it felt like somebody just snatched the blanket right off me. You know, like when your mama trying to wake you up in the morning for school, like that snatch off, or they're like, what you doing under the cover type of snatch. It was like one of those. So I'm like, and like when I wake up, the only thing that's in my visual is Freyja. Like I look around and I can't see anything. You know what I'm saying? Like I cannot see. You know, like everything is blurry. Only thing I can see is Freyja clear as day. So I'm like, and I look at her and I'm like, you know, like, am I tripping? Like, do her lips look purple? And I'm like, Sean, you know, do her lips look purple? And he's like, you know, he's like knocked out. And I'm like, you know, and I'm like exhausted. Like I can barely keep my eyes open. And I'm like, are her lips purple? You know, and like I said, like I went back to sleep. She was still asleep at the time when I had woken up. And so I went back to sleep again. And this time I felt like someone grabbed this part of my ankle and snatched it down. Mind you, I'm laying on the bed. So it felt like somebody snatched my leg trying to pull me off the bed, right? So I wake up again. This time I jump up. All right, that literally, like, you got me up. Like, who's pulling on my leg? And so again, like, I wake up, and only thing in my visual, the only thing that I can see clear as day is Freyja. And I'm like, Freyja, you know, are you okay? Do you need to go to the hospital? You know, like, do we need to go? And I'm still breastfeeding at the time and everything. She says yes. And I like got dressed. We're out the door. I'm hauling ASS to the emergency room. We get there, and she's still like, her face is like starting to get purple, and I'm like freaking out, like, okay. So we get to the desk. I'm like, her face is purple. This is not normal. Like, she can't breathe. And they're like, yes, ma'am. Okay, what I need you to do is we need you to sign her in the kiosk over there, and we'll see her in a minute. And I'm like, this is an emergency. She needs to be seen right now. I can sign in. Somebody needs to take her. I understand, ma'am, but we really need for you to sign that kiosk over there, and the nurse or the doctor will call you. I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, if this wasn't a serious situation, lady, I would freaking John Q this goddamn hospital. You're lucky, right? And so within like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, you know, the doctor comes out there. You know, they do all the little things, and I'm in there like trying to fight back tears. The tears like still coming out. Like, I'm like wiping them off so I can look calm. When Freyja looks my way, I'm just like, you got it, you know. And she was not cooperating, like, at all. And so I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, girl, this is not the time for you not to cooperate. But so yeah, she eventually like finally started cooperating. They got her hooked up to the machines, the nebulizer, gave her the steroid to like calm the heavy inflammation down. And I was like, you know, like, they're asking me like, you know, like, when did this happen? When does this normally happen? And I'm like, this is literally like the first time. Like, she's never done anything like this before. I don't know. Like, I literally cannot tell you anything. You know, she's done everything the exact same, you know, her whole life. You know, I don't know what's different. And basically, she has seasonal allergies that causes sort of like her to have like an asthmatic reaction. even though she's not an asthmatic. So I was like, huh? And so they basically, they gave us the nebulizer and the albuterol and instructions on how to give it to her. They kept us overnight, and it was crazy. That day was crazy because had that intervention not happened, where the blanket got snatched off me and my leg got pulled, and we got to the hospital and got her seen at the time, like, they told us that she could have died in her sleep. And I was like, oh snap, like, thank goodness, like, oh, like, thank you, you know, like, thank you, John, like. And at the time I was just like, oh my God, like, that is so crazy. That is so crazy to even think about. Like, it's scary to even think about. Like, had that not happened, like, literally we would have woken up to her not being alive, and that's just so scary to think about. And so the doctors weren't really helpful. So I, you know, because I'm like, is this what you're gonna be like on the nebulizer your whole entire life? Like, is this just it? And so I just started doing research. Like, came across this video with this lady talking about how she got rid of her child's asthma by getting rid of the mucus causing foods. You know, that's the dairy, because dairy is like causes so much mucus buildup in the body, which, you know, inflames the lungs and causes that congestion and causes the shortness of breath and makes it hard for you to breathe. And I read that, I'm like, whoa. And so I cut out dairy for like a long while, and she hadn't like wheezed. And then I noticed, like, when she has like even small amounts of dairy, like, it triggers her to start wheezing. And I'm like, okay, we cut dairy out. So yeah. And now it's like super controlled. Like, we've had to use the nebulizer recently, but after that, those days that we used the nebulizer, we haven't needed to use it since. But prior to us recently using it, she had gone like a year and a half before needing to use it again. And it wasn't until recently that we was just like, okay, no dairy, no anything with dairy in it, because it's, you know, this is what it is. And yeah, since that, it's been like great. So that is the end of this story time. Hope you enjoyed it. It was really good to actually share it and express it. So yes, like this video, comment down below, and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you guys next time.